Sequel number 24 of the Church of Uganda at 150, a celebration of our church history. Welcome. This is Christopher Amos Chikomekontambi, the producer, and today we are going to look at the fundraising for the Lulas in East Africa, who the church, yes, the church is helping, and they want to make sure that they have money. Indeed, they made sure, and they gave them the money, and so the British Imperial Company stayed. As I said yesterday, this was their best chance of surviving with some protection. And so let's begin the sequel. In UK, the Christian Missionaries Society Gleaners Union anniversary was being celebrated at the Exeter Hall, and Bishop Alfred Tucker was present. He raised the issue, and can you imagine, £8,000 of that time was raised on the spot. This man was a great mobilizer, this Alfred Tucker. Then another £8,000 was also raised in 14 days. And immediately that money was sent to the headquarters of the Imperial British East Africa in Zanzibar. And once that money reached Zanzibar, of course, it was confirmed that the company will stay in Uganda. So Alfred Tucker had won. The company would stay. So he went on more campaigns in Cambridge, in Birmingham, and then good enough, even William Mackinnon, the owner or the leader of the Imperial British African Company, also arrived in England. He confirmed the bankruptcy, and he said that what they wanted to run Uganda alone was about 40,000 sterling pounds. And so they had already sent the 16, so the campaign and the fundraising continued all the way to October. And Alfred Tucker stayed on in England all that time to ensure that that money is got. So by October, the entire 40 had been raised. It had been sent to the IBA headquarters in Zanzibar, and therefore Alfred Tucker was very happy. His mission had been very successful. Now, in 1891, the year in which Alfred Tucker was in England, here in Uganda, we want to assess the progress of the church. Yeah, the Mengo Church Council, which was the governor of the Anglican Church, sent out teachers to the villages to work as evangelists. Remember, this is what had happened in England. Yeah, the low church evangelists were the ones who then came in as missionaries. Now they are also training others to be evangelists to the outlying villages of this country. And they also sent them not only as evangelists, but they will also be teachers in literacy and numerals. Yeah, so people had to learn to write, people had to learn to count. The remuneration for the evangelists was simply by way of food from the local village chiefs. And this had already been agreed with the missionaries through the kingdom or the government of the Kabaka. When the teachers got married, these evangelical teachers, in case they were to get married, they had to leave their parents, and the local chiefs then would give them houses. Now, I want us to understand this. They would send evangelists to their own villages, so they would stay with their relatives. However, if they were to get married, that was the only time when the chiefs would find houses for them. And these houses were to be got from the communal plots. At that time, the Buganda Agreement had not yet been made, so the entire land was communal. So the communal plots is where they would build their habitation. Now, what began as Mengo Deanery, covering the whole of Uganda, grew And it began to break off as early as 1891, began to break off or to carve out other areas. For example, Buddu Dinari, Busoga Dinari. In Buddu, a grass thatched small church was put up at Kajuna, and it was led by evangelist Shadrach Chigura Chibuka and Yonasani Kaizi. From there, the Buddu Dinari grew into Kochi, Kabula, Maogola, Singo, Maokota, Gomba, and Busuju. 1891, the church is growing, the church is spreading. That is the church we are celebrating 150 years later. Now, the Bukesa Hill was a gift negotiated out of the war settlement with Kabaka Mwanga and the Christians, especially the Anglican faction. But Mwanga had asked them not to build at the top for reasons I've already mentioned in these sequels. However, this order was now defied by the missionaries. And this was in 1891. The missionaries were asking why. And then they were told, oh, you see, Namirembe, Namirembe, Namirembe. And then the rubbish about your Namirembe spirit and blah, 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 blah. It is just a hill. Everything is a creature of God. The hill was created by God. So you cannot tell us about Namirembe as a ghost, as I don't know, a Sodia, as I don't know, an angelic what. They refused to hear that nonsense. The missionaries asked, what does the word mean? Fine, we understand that that is a spirit, but what is that word? What does it mean? They were asking. And of course, when they were told that it has a connotation about peace, they said, then that's it. Let the hill be called Peace. And so the name Namirembe remained. The hill was renamed Namirembe, not Bukesa anymore. And as a matter of fact, it's only the slopes which retained the name Bukesa. But as far as the top was concerned, it changed the name to Namirembe. And so when they defied, the missionaries started building a second mission station church on top of the hill. And it had a forest of poles with many windows cut into the walls at regular intervals. Its walls were made of beautiful reedwork, and this was reedwork by Baganda, not missionaries. And the church had a raised platform for preaching the gospel and a communion rail. After it was completed, Mwanga gave up the battle. He had to come and appear at its consecration. So Mwanga attended the consecration of the church on top of the hill, even if he had earlier refused them to do so. Now, on the other hill, Lubaga Hill, they were also doing the same thing. They were building. And on Christmas Day, the 25th of December, 1891, the White Fathers Mission Church on Rubaga Hill was also officially opened by the Bishop of Kavirondo, Monsignor Jean Joseph Heath. He had succeeded Levin Huck in May of 1890. And Mwanga again attended the ceremony. Yeah, so he was acting royal. He was a king for everybody. So he also attended the consecration there. And however, I must mention that the Christian Missionary Society missionaries were not invited at that event. That's what Alfred Tucker says in his book. The mission church that was opened was not a cathedral. Yeah, the cathedral was still in Kavirondo. So Rubaga was also not a cathedral church at that time. These mistakes historians have been making for a very long time. They need to be corrected as we celebrate 150 years. We made them at the centenary celebrations. So let's not repeat these mistakes now as we celebrate the sesquicentennial. And so, now that the fundraising in Britain had been successful, the bishop began to prepare for his return journey, and indeed he traveled safely. And on the 23rd of December 1891, he arrived in Mombasa, Frere Town. That is where his cathedral was based. He began pastoral duties as a bishop of Eastern Equatorial Africa, and on the 24th of January 1892, he ordained missionaries. I think this was his first ordination. The first ordination by Bishop Alfred Tucker was on the 24th of January 1892, where? In Frere Town at the Cathedral of Eastern Equatoria Diocese. He ordained missionaries Crabtree and another one called England and another one called Bat. He then made his first visit into the northern corridor of his diocese. He passed through Savo to Ukambaland. This town was in Kenya. He then crossed over to Kilimanjaro in Tanganyika by February 1892 among the Maasai people. There he confirmed one Maasai candidate before heading south to Chaga. Chaga was another big kingdom there in northern Tanganyika. He found the Chaga mission station was manned by a missionary called Baxter and another one called Stegal, who accompanied the bishop to meet the Chaga king, who was called Meli. During their meeting, the bishop's chair, the one he was sitting in, broke, and the poor bishop fell down on the ground. Bishop Wu. But he was not hurt, and therefore it was time for him to return to Frere Town. And he did so from around the 21st of February. They began the journey to the coast, and they arrived at Frere Town on the 4th of March, 1892. Now, this was, as far as the bishop is concerned, is coming back from London and his ministry at the coast and in Kenya and in Tanganyika. That was 1892. Now, what about in Buganda? What was happening in Buganda is terrible, but I must give you a background to it, and that will be tomorrow's sequel. Sequel number 25. I give you the build-up to the problems that led to the Second Civil War in Buganda Kingdom. That will be tomorrow. That will be in sequel 25. As of today, we can only say that may the God's blessing be with all of us. Amen.